please again help us welcome our guest this evening, the Reverend Dr. Bradford Lilley.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Come on, say it with me one more time. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
And what I mean by that? I mean all the power ought to belong to all of the people. Can you dig it?
Amen.
I'm talking about brown power to brown people, yellow power to yellow people, white power to white people, and black power to black people, because the power ought to belong to us. Amen. And if you think it does, now you are mistaken. I'm Brad Lilley. I'm one of the original members of the Winston-Salem Black Panther Party. I know that I'm supposed to be talking about the 60s and 70s, so I don't have to tell you how old I am. But I've been around. I was there for Malcolm, for Martin, for Stokely. I was there for all of those that you have heard about that fought this struggle, and we're still fighting this struggle. So let me begin with the 60s and tell you how I got involved. Strangely enough, it was my mother. You see, in the 60s, in the latter part of the 60s, the mid-60s, latter part of the 60s, we were, black people were fighting for integration, to be recognized as full citizens in this country. And my mother was a part of that struggle, even in the Deep South. So in her little hometown of Hereford, North Carolina, which is in Bequemins County, East Coast, North Carolina. Anybody know anything? Nobody? Nobody from back home? All right. So what they were doing, they were trying to integrate a school. And the civil rights leaders, NAACP, came into the area and they talked to the people, and it was a thing about nonviolence. You know, you're familiar with Dr. King, and you know, his motto, his philosophy was nonviolence. And so this one particular time, they were planning a demonstration concerning the schools and integrating the schools. All the black people in the different black communities came together, and they, did my mic go out? I'm a preacher, I can talk loud. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
I think my mic came back. They gathered all together. They came to one country church. We were out in a little country church, and they were giving instructions. Now we're going out there, we're going to face some racist people. And they may throw stuff at you, or they may spit at you. They may hit you or call you names, but you've got to be nonviolent. And if anybody is not able to do that, you can't go with us. After they did all the instructions and things, they had to do one more thing. So they said, now this is one thing we've got to ask you to do. I need everybody that bought their guns or any type of weapon to bring it up to the front of the church. And you know that little table they got in the front of the church said, put your guns, put your weapons right here. And I got to tell you, when they finished putting them guns and things on that table, I had never seen so many guns in my life. And they were getting ready to load up, and then they made one other stipulation. All the children gonna have to stay at the church. We're not gonna take y'all, because we know that if somebody does something to one of y'all parents gonna go off. And so we were told to stay at the church. They loaded up and they went downtown to demonstrate. The Klan knew that they were coming. Everybody knew there was supposed to be a nonviolent demonstration. I'm gonna tell you what happened that night. The Klan didn't go to the demonstration. They came to the church. And they shot up the church. And I remember as a little boy, a young boy, lying down on the floor of the church under some pews, hoping that I wouldn't get shot. That was my introduction to the civil rights movement. My mother is the one that got me involved in it. In 1968, I was 16 years old, and I was on summer vacation. We went to Wildwood, New Jersey, beach resort, and I spent the summer there. We worked, my brother and I, some of the other guys from my community. We got on a bus and we traveled from North Carolina to New Jersey, and that's where we spent the summer. Well, I'd heard about the Black Panthers. I read a little bit about the Black Panthers, and I liked what I heard. My brother came up with this idea because he found out that the Panthers were in Atlantic City. So let's get on a bus and go to Atlantic City to the Black Panther office. And so that's what we did, and that's where we went, and we met the Panthers there. And my life changed when I met some real bad brothers and sisters. I mean, they were down. And they talked about the struggle and how we needed to be involved and how we had to take up arms and how we had to fight for our rights and for our freedom. And they gave us books, posters. We came back several times, and when the summer was over, I went back home to my segregated self. One day, we were sitting in the living room watching TV, black and white. This man came on the screen. He said, "We're gonna shoot our way into the White House. We're gonna cut off the head of the president, and we're gonna shoot our way back out." And I said, "Right on." And my daddy said, "That N-word crazy. Who is that man?" And I said, "That's Eldridge Cleaver, Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party." And my father said, "He's crazy." He said, "I know that man. I've seen him somewhere. I know I've seen him somewhere." And he had. You see, because the Panthers had given us posters. And I brought those posters home and I hung them up on my bedroom wall. Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver, Angela. You know, I had all of that. And he remembered. That's where he saw that man. He went into the bedroom. He tore every poster off the wall. And he didn't stop there. He took every book I had about black power, black awareness, black anything. He took all my literature, took it all to the backyard, put it in a barrel, set it on fire. He told me and my brother, "As long as you live in my house, don't you talk that black power stuff. Don't you act like black power. And don't bring your black power friends to my house." Well, the next morning, early in the morning, I woke up and my brother was packing a bag. And I said, where you going? He said, I can't live here anymore. I said, but where are you going? He said, I'm going back to New Jersey. I'm going to join the Black Panthers. So why don't you come with me? But I couldn't go because I had a girlfriend. I played football. No, it wasn't her. I played football. You know, I couldn't leave all of that stuff. So I finished high school, and I was accepted into Fayetteville State University. And in 1969, as a freshman, my mother was driving me. My sister was with us to Fayetteville State University, freshman orientation. I felt good about going to school. I was leaving home. I wasn't under my father's roof anymore. I felt like I would have a little freedom. But on the way to Fayetteville, as we came into town, there was a billboard on the outskirts of town, high up in the air, large billboard. On that billboard was a Klansman riding a white horse, and the caption said, "Welcome to Klan country." And I said, oh my God. I didn't know what I was getting into. When I got on the campus, I still had a hunger and a thirst. I wanted somebody to tell me about the struggle. I was willing to learn. I needed to learn. I wanted to be involved with some brothers and sisters that were down, that knew all about this power thing, this black power thing, and how I could be involved and how I could make a difference. But when I got on campus, that's not what they were about. They were about the Greek fraternities and sororities and having parties. And I wandered that campus trying to find other people with a mind like mine that wanted to talk about the struggle. But I just couldn't find them. And I was dissatisfied. But one day, two brothers came on the campus. They were Black Panthers. They were from Winston-Salem. I ended up spending the whole weekend with them. And when they got ready to go back to Winston-Salem, I said, just wait a minute. I went and packed my bags. I got in that car and I went with them. Now, before we got to Winston-Salem, we were driving. We went through Charlotte because they were on assignment from the Panthers. We came through Charlotte and everything, and everywhere we went, they would stop and go into a store, steal a bottle of wine. And so, we're riding down the road, they steal wine, and then they run out of wine, they stop and they steal some more wine, and we drank that wine. And, but that wasn't me. That just wasn't me. Well, we stopped one place, and, they went in to steal, but I went in to buy me something to eat. I wanted to eat. In that store, I saw them when they went around. I went and bought a roasted chicken in the store. I was standing in the checkout line. Because they were stealing, the police were called and they got arrested. But I got arrested too. All right? So they arrested me in the checkout line with what I had. And they took us to jail. And there was a couple other guys with us. And handcuffed us, and we stood up against the wall. And as a police officer walked by, one of the brothers that was there said, "That MF pig." And the cop turned around and looked at me. and said, "What did you say?" And I said, "Man, I didn't say nothing." And he gave me that hard look, and then he turned to walk away. And that other brother said again, just like the MFP. And the cop turned around again and looked at me and said, "What did you say?" I said, "I didn't say nothing." He said, "Come with me." And so I'm handcuffed. My hands are behind me. He tells me to walk down the hall. I walk down the hall. He tells me to make a right. I make a right. Then he tells me to make another right. And I make that right. And it's a wall. I walked into a dead end. And I turned around to see what was going on. And that's when he began to beat me. It was him and another cop. They were beating me. And I couldn't protect myself, so I fell to the floor and tried to ball up as best I could. And since I fell to the floor, then they put their boots on me. And I looked up, and down the hall, I saw this black cop coming. And I said, "Yo, brother, you see what these pigs doing to me?" And that cop came up, and he joined them. And they kept on beating me. Well, when I went to court, I got bailed out from jail. And when I went to court, I was defending myself. And the judge, I just told the judge, I was not stealing. I was buying what I had. I had the money in my pocket. The judge asked, "How much money did you find on him?" And they told the amount. And he said, "Well, how much did the chicken cost?" And they told the amount. And it was the exact amount that I had. So I was found not guilty. I made it to Winston-Salem. When I walked into Winston-Salem, their headquarters, the chapter, was on 14th and Jackson Street. If anybody is from Winston-Salem, when I walked in, the first person I saw was my brother. I had not seen him in almost 2 years. And he looked at me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I looked at him and said, "What are you doing here?" And I told her, "I've come to join the Panthers." So that was cool with him. What I thought would happen, they'd put a gun in my hand, send me out in the streets, and I was gonna wreck those streets. I was gonna raise hell. I was gonna be a revolutionary. That's what I expected, but that's not what they did. They put books in my hands. They said, "You've got to learn. You got to learn about this political system. You got to learn about this racist government. You got to learn about how to have revolution and how to overthrow your oppressor." And so every night we had to study. We had to learn the Black Panther Party 10-point program. We had to study our Black Panther newspaper. Then there were all kinds of books that we had to read, and sometimes we stayed up to the middle of the night. When you got up in the mornings, we had the free breakfast program where we would feed children before they went to school. And then we would hit the streets. We sold newspapers, or we did other things to help the party or to put programs in place. And then one day, I was on those streets in Winston-Salem selling newspapers, and I had the weirdest feeling, a sensation, a feeling that I had never experienced before in my life. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was weak, and I could hardly move. And I told somebody that was one of the Panthers that was with me, "I feel bad, I don't know what's wrong." And they said, "Man, have you had anything to eat?" Well, I hadn't. They said, "You hungry?" I never knew what hunger was. You know how you say, "I'm hungry, I'm starving," but I had never known what it felt like to be hungry before. And none of us had any money, so we went down to the blood bank and we sold some blood. And those guys, they bought wine. I bought myself something to eat. They sent me to High Point, North Carolina. Said, "We want you to go over to High Point. We want you to help organize." Nelson Malloy told me that I was being made a field lieutenant. Don't ask me what that meant, because I still did everything that I did when I was just rank and file. But we went over there, we were opening up a organizing branch of the Black Panther Party. It was called the NCCF, National Committee to Combat Fascism. And before you could become a Panther chapter, you had to first be in the NCCF and do all the things, learn all the things that you had to learn to be a Panther so you could be one correct. There were a whole lot of people out there saying that they were Panthers, but they were incorrect. I don't know why they wanted to put that bullseye on them, because we were a target for the FBI, for law enforcement, and for the city. We began to organize in High Point. One of the first things we did was start a free breakfast program for school children, because we come to understand that a child cannot learn if they go to school hungry. And the situation in the Black community, the poor communities, was that the mother and father had to get up early. They were gone and gone to work before the kids ever left to go to school. And so there were a lot of children that were not being fed. And once we started feeding children, the whole community came around us and began to support us. But strange things about it, J. Edgar Hoover, director of the FBI, he said that the Black Panther Party free breakfast program was the biggest threat to the internal security of the United States. And you wonder why feeding children threatens the United States, until you begin to understand, when we began to feed children, we had whole communities coming together and organizing, and we were showing that we can take care of ourselves, that we don't have to be dependent on anybody. We can fix our own problems. We can be self-sufficient. We organized whole communities behind that free breakfast program. And not only that, in Winston-Salem, we started a revolutionary program, the free ambulance service, the Joseph Waddell free ambulance service. Nowhere in the country had there ever been, or ever is now, a free ambulance service. And we did that because there was a need in the Black community, because when Black people had to go to the hospital, had to be rushed to the hospital, when you called the ambulance and gave them your address, if you lived in a Black community, they would not come. And if they did come, you had to pay the ambulance fee before you got in the ambulance. Our people were dying. Our people were putting people in cars and trying to get them to the hospital. And can you imagine when somebody's had a heart attack and the ambulance won't take you? And so we saw this problem and said, what can we do about this? We got to do something. We came up with that idea to have a free ambulance service. And I'm telling you, you can sit down and you can look at a problem and you can fix things if you come together and if you work together and if you say, I can. I can make a difference. I can change this. And so we established that free ambulance service. Money was donated to us where we could buy the ambulance. We sent 35 people to community college to get their certifications. And then the city of Winston-Salem, because we were Black Panthers, would not give us the license or to operate an ambulance service in the city. They wouldn't license us. They would not allow us to operate that ambulance service. We had to go around the city and get a license from the county. And we got that license from the county, and we began to pick up people, black, white, it did not matter. If you called us, we would come get you. Free. Free. Today, if you get an ambulance, you might think your insurance is covering, but let me tell you something. It costs you $400 and $500 to ride in an ambulance today. When we started that free breakfast program, and J. Edgar Hoover said it was the biggest threat to the United States, and they couldn't stop us, you know what they did? They took it over. They started feeding every child in the nation. You could go to school, and if your income was at a certain level, you could get free food. And all of you have been to school, and you know that. You can get it. Some of you have got it. But what you don't know is the Black Panther Party, we started that. We did that. When there was... And I tell people it's a win-win situation. Yeah, they took it from us. We didn't have the resources. All we could feed were the children in our neighborhood. But in order to stop us, they had to feed y'all all over the nation. Sickle cell anemia, the disease that attacks black people. The government tried to keep it a secret. A secret. But when we found out about it, we started the free sickle cell anemia clinics to make people aware, black people aware of what this disease is and how it affects us and what we can do about it. We started that free clinic, and from that, we had free health clinics. And I know today, they got free health clinics in this country, don't they? What you don't know, we started that, the Black Panther Party, and in order to stop us, the government had to take it over. Revolution, baby. That's what it was. That wasn't done by a gun. That was done by organizing and bringing people together and raising the awareness, the consciousness of whole groups of people. We came under attack. J. Edgar Hoover started a program, FBI, called the Counterintelligence Program, COINTEL for short. Maybe some of you know it. He said that we cannot let there be a black Messiah. We cannot have a leader in the black community that will bring black people together. And so what happened? That's why Malcolm got killed. That's why Martin got killed. That's why Rap Brown is in prison today. And not only that, that's why Fred Hampton in Chicago was shot to death in his bed while he slept to stop there ever being a black Messiah, a leader of black people. They had a program that they would either nullify us, put us in jail, or put us in the cemetery. And they came at us with whatever reason they wanted to. That's why on February the 10th, 1971, 5:30 in the morning, it was just about time for us to get up to start our free breakfast program. One of the brothers in the Panthers, George DeWitt, he normally would have slept at our headquarters, 612 Huddle Street, High Point. But the day before was his birthday. So he went home, and we teased him, you just went home for your mama cooking. He went home, but he got up early in the morning, walked across town, got there around 5 o'clock, and what he saw were police officers, sheriff's department, law enforcement, SBI, FBI, over 100 police officers had surrounded our office in High Point. They say they came to evict us. They came to kill us. At 5:30 in the morning, think about it. Who gets evicted at 5:30 in the morning? Before the sun come up. They came to kill us. And eviction was just a pretense. George knocked on the door, woke us up. He said, man, the pigs are everywhere. They surrounded us. We looked out the windows, and sure enough, they were out there. They said, what are we going to do? It was George, Larry Medley, Randolph Jennings, Ricky Hooper, and myself. Well, Ricky was pregnant. So we said, Ricky, you got to go. You got to get out. But we're not leaving. We're going to make our stand. She didn't want to go, but we made her leave. And we closed the door, and we ain't prepared for that. We've seen it happen too many times. When the police would come and raid one of our offices, and Panthers would be killed. Over 26 Panthers were killed during the time of the Black Panthers. I don't know how many of us went to jail. Some of us, 50 years, 40 years later, still in jail, railroaded. There was a knock at the door. Who is it? But we knew. It's the police department. What do you want? We want y'all to come out so we can talk to you. Randolph Jennings said, we ain't got nothing to talk about. Got nothing to say. And they left off the porch, and for a while, nothing happened. And then we heard a shot. It was a tear gas canister. It's about that big, that long, about like a mortar shell. They shot it. It went through the window. I saw it when it hit the floor and bounced on the floor. I saw the tear gas fill up the room. And then they shot another one upstairs. The whole house filled up with tear gas. And I tell you, I'd heard about tear gas. How it chokes you, makes you cry. People give up. But I'm gonna tell you this, you can be so scared. Tear gas won't make you walk out in front of all them guns. So we did not come out. Then the shooting started. And we had fortified our office, so there were some sandbags in different locations. While I huddled down behind a sandbag, you could hear the bullets as they ripped through the walls. And it seemed like everything went in slow motion. Because as them bullets were tearing up the walls, you could see pieces of plaster and dust flying through the air, mixing with that tear gas. And we saw all of that. But I was a Black Panther. We believed in self-defense. Yeah, they had guns. They had a lot of guns. But I had a gun too. And so I took my gun, M1 carbine rifle, shooting 30 R6 bullets. And I looked, and I saw this police officer, and he was shooting, pointing his gun upstairs. And I knew George and Larry were upstairs. It's a bolt-action rifle. Came out of World War I or something. I hit the bolt, and I jacked the shell in, and I took aim. I saw this cop. I aimed for his head. He was standing behind a tree, and every now and then he'd step out and he'd step back. Step out, step back. And I waited. And when I had aim at him, I aimed for his head. I knew I was gonna die that day. But if I was gonna die, I wasn't gonna die alone. I'm taking somebody with me. I pulled the trigger of my gun. It clicked. It would not fire. But I was determined, before they kill me, I'm gonna kill one of them. And so I jacked that shell out, and I jacked another shell in, and I waited, and I took aim. That same cop stepped out, stepped back, stepped out, stepped back. And when I had a good bead on his head again, I pulled the trigger. But my gun would not shoot. Now I knew my gun. I cleaned it every night. I took it to target practice. It had never misfired. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. But I was still determined, I'm gonna kill this man before he kills us. And I jacked another shell in, and I waited. But this time he kept moving his head. But he stepped out, and I saw his heart. I'm gonna shoot him in the heart. I pulled that trigger. That gun fired. But I missed his heart. Because he was turned sideways, the bullet went in, took out one lung, came out his arm. I saw that man, that bullet, lift him up in the air, flip him all the way around, and he landed on his back. And I saw another cop try to rush to his aid and pull him back to safety. And I fired at that cop also, but I didn't hit him. And then George called from upstairs and said, "Brad." I said, "What is it?" He said, "Larry's been shot." Larry had been shot 2 times in the shoulder. And I said, "How bad is it?" And he said, "I don't know. It looks bad, there's a lot of blood." I was prepared to give my life up that day. I knew I was gonna die. I was prepared for it, and I was not afraid to face death. But what I was not prepared for was to give Larry's life. And so when George said, "What are we gonna do?" And I thought about it for a while. And I said, Randy, tell them we coming out. And he called out, hold your fire, we're coming out. Larry and George came downstairs when they quit shooting. They came downstairs and we stood at that front door. The biggest decision that I had ever made at that time, we had to make then. Who was going out first? Because we knew the story of little Bobby Hutton, killed, 16 years old, unarmed, already under arrest, shot down by the police. We knew about Fred Hampton, about Mark Clark. We knew about others who had been shot down. And so the decision had to be made, who was going to be the first out that door? Of the four of us in that room, I was the oldest. I was 19. Randy was 17. George and Larry were 16 years old. And so we went out. February the 10th. Yesterday marked our 49th anniversary. It was cold outside. I had on some jeans and a wife beater t-shirt. White. And they told us to come off the porch, and we came out, and I was fully expecting to be shot down. They told us to lay down in the street. And I laid down, there was ice on the ground. They laid us down and they handcuffed us. And while I'm laid down, handcuffed, something was happening that I could not understand what was happening because my body kept jumping. My body just kept jumping. And I didn't know why my body was jumping like that. I could not understand it till something made me turn my head. And when I turned my head, Larry was laid right beside me. And I looked him in the eyes, and his eyes, because he had got shot, he was in shock, and his eyes were kind of like glazed over. But I saw Larry's body was jumping up and down too. He was moving like the same way as I was moving. And then I could look and I could see they were beating us and stomping us, clubbing us with their guns, kicking us in the head to the point that you can be beat so bad you can't feel it anymore. And I hope and pray don't none of y'all get beat like that. So when whatever part of my body they hit with those gun barrels, those gun butts, that part of my body immediately went numb. And when they hit me again, I couldn't feel it there. I just couldn't understand why my body was reacting and moving and jumping in the air like that until I saw what they were doing to Larry, and I understood then they were doing the same thing to me. Somewhere in that process, I got knocked out cold. I don't remember getting off the ground. I don't remember being loaded into a police car. But I do remember when my conscience came back to me, when I awoke, I looked around. All four of us were in a police car. I could see the flashes of blue, and I could hear the sirens going off. But I must have blacked out again, because I don't remember ever arriving to the jail. I don't remember getting out of the car. The next thing I remember, I was sitting in a room, in the middle of the room, in a chair, handcuffed behind the chair. And when I raised my head, there were several police officers in the room. And I asked them, my first question, how's Larry? And they told me, we hope he dies. I thought Larry was gonna die. The next thing I asked them, what y'all charging me with? And they said, They were charging me with attempted murder. 3 counts. Because Larry got shot. But we shot 3 cops. And it's one of the few times where more cops got shot than Panthers. The other 2 who were hit, they were shot with a ride pump shotgun, shooting deer slugs. Some of y'all know what that is. The only reason those cops did not get hurt because they wore bulletproof vests. We were charged with assault with a deadly weapon, the attempt to kill, 3 charges, and charged with conspiracy to shoot police officers. We went to trial. At our trial, they didn't have any of our fingerprints on them guns. It's not because we removed our fingerprints, but because they mishandled all of that. Every cop that walked in that house touched them guns. So they said, well, we have traces of lead on our hands. But we said, we have been painting this house. And at that time, paint was lead-based. I sat in that courtroom and I listened to them make up stuff. They fabricated evidence. They said the shot that hit that police officer came from upstairs, and I knew it came from downstairs, but that's where I was. But they had all of this picture, and they had the red string, showing where all the shots came from. But we asked them about this officer that got shot. He was white, but he was hated in the police department. They hated him. Can you prove that he didn't get shot by one of you? Well, the 4 of us, when they selected our jury, there was 1 black woman on that jury. We had a secret. You see, that black lady on that jury, that was George's aunt. And we fully expected she gonna hang this jury. Our joy went up, we were happy, we were singing songs in the jail. The trial lasted 1 week. And when the judge asked the head juror to read the verdict, they found me guilty. They found Larry guilty. They found Randy guilty. And George was found not guilty. Now I want to ask you, how do you convict 3 people when you cannot prove who shot what gun? How does 1 person get set free? But it's okay, he's our brother. And it was fine. We know he hadn't snitched on us or anything like that. It's just, that's just the way the cookie crumbled, the way what they used to say. We had to go to jail. Now, because we were teenagers, I expected to be sent to Polk Youth Center, because that's where they sent the teenagers. But they sent me to Raleigh Central Prison. I was in there, and when I came in there, I heard that cat call, fresh blood. fresh meat. And I'd heard what happens to young boys in the prison. And so I'm ready to square off with anybody first sucker touch me. One guy did touch, felt me, like I felt on me. And I just turned around and hit him. And it was all a test just to see what I would do. And I hit him. And we stood and looked at each other. And he shook his head and walked away. And when they put me in my cell, 3 or 4 guys ran into my cell. And they said, "We know who you are. We've been waiting on you." And I'm thinking, oh boy, here it comes. I'm ready. If they open these doors, I'm just coming out, and we're going to have to fight. And they said, "You're one of the High Point 4. You're a Black Panther. We need you. Help us organize in this prison. Teach us and bring us together." And so I took that Panther training, and I began to teach them about intercommunal living, socialism. Everybody share. If you're in jail and nobody is sending you money from home, we got money. Everybody put everything in a box. There were brothers in there that couldn't afford toothpaste, cigarettes to smoke, soap. If you use the state soap was thy soap. The state made it. It messed up your complexion. But you could buy soap, candy bars, stamps. We put it all together. And we said, this is a collective. And we're all going to help each other. And I began to give them the same literature that the Panthers had given me. I said, tell your people to send you these books. And we had political education classes in the prison yard. We became revolutionaries in the prison yard. And I wasn't there by myself. There were brothers there from Chicago that were Panthers. There were the Wilmington 10, Ben Chavis, and all of his group. I was in there with them at the same time. We organized Central Prison. We stopped that booty bandit stuff. You know, just tell if you want to be a part of us, you can't be in that men loving on men. We ain't going for that. And I'm talking about rape, men raping men. And they call themselves the booty bandits. And we said we're against that. And when they buck up and say, well, who? We are, us. And it's enough of us. In prison, I saw men get their heads about cut off. I saw stabbings, brutal beatings, laying in a cell, and in the next cell, a man getting raped. Then get up in the morning, and that guy comes out of that cell that's been raped. He can't look nobody in the face because somebody has stolen his manhood. And we had to make a change before all of that. We've got several lawsuits that we filed against the state of North Carolina prison system that we could have access to legal books. And I became a jailhouse lawyer. I wrote writs and petitions for other men to send it to court to try to get them new trials. While I was at Central Prison, I got 21 infractions, 21 write-ups, not for fighting or anything like that, for disobeying the guards. Because they had this silly idea that they had to count you so many times a day. I guess this makes sure nobody escaped. But early in the morning, they would come by. You had to get out of bed and stand in front of your cell so they could count you. I thought that was crazy. I've been locked up all night. And they say, get up, you gotta get up for count. And I would say, sucker, can't you see I'm still here? Count me. And they would lock me up. And then I found out going to solitaire was the best thing you could ever ask for. In solitaire, I didn't have to share a cell with nobody, which meant I could get all the sleep I wanted. It meant I could read anything I wanted, and nobody would bother me. So every time I served my 30 days or whatever, then 10 days or whatever time they gave me, every time when they would let me out and put me back in the general population, you know what I'd do? I'd refuse to get up for count. They told me when I got there, prison, they said, this is your prison number. You got to remember this. I took that and threw it away. And every time, what's your number? I don't know. What's your number? I don't know. Quit being smart. I really don't know. They would send me back to solitaire. I did most of my time on solitaire. When it came time for my parole hearing, I went before the parole board. Now I knew my record, 21 infractions. I ain't making parole. I'm just gonna settle down and get ready to do this 10 years. And I sat there before the parole board, and they looked at my record, and they said, Mr. Lilley, we see that you've been behaving very well. You don't have any infractions. And I looked at them. I wasn't gonna tell them. But I wondered what happened to those infractions that somebody pulled it out of my jacket and they weren't in there. And then I found out one of them brothers that I shared my stamps with, my cigarettes with, that became part of our community, that was his job as a trustee to go in there. And he knew I was coming up for parole. He pulled my jacket. Could have got him more time. He pulled my jacket, took out all of those infractions. And so they gave me parole. But I'm gonna tell you how the system is. Even though I made parole, it was a whole year before they released me. So then, every day, when it came count time, I was up standing in front of that cell because I wanted to make parole. And they used that as a control mechanism for a whole year. But I did make parole. And when I got out, I went back to the Black Panther Party. But things had changed. While I was in prison, there was a split between the Black Panther Party, the Huey Newton faction, and the Eldridge Cleaver faction. Because Eldridge was ready for get your guns and let's have revolution now. And Huey was saying the people ain't ready. We'll just get people killed. And I found out that J. Edgar Hoover's plan, COINTEL, he sent letters to one person will receive a letter telling them that this person was getting ready to do this. Or if you had a wife, she might get a letter saying that you sleeping with 3 and 4 different sisters. And we had some powerful sisters in the Panther Party. And the thing people always ask me, well, how were the women treated? And I answered just like this. Them sisters had guns too. And we gave them much respect because their lives were on the line just like ours. I then was lost. I dabbled in drugs. I picked up a gun. I wasn't involving myself with the Panthers anymore. The reason why I picked up a gun, after I got out on parole, I got married, not to this beautiful lady. And we had a child, but I lost my job. And I asked my dad to help me out, and he refused because I was a Black Panther. And so I took my gun and I went out on them streets and I did what I had to do to support my family, to keep my baby fed, to keep a roof over our heads. But I did not like what I was doing. And then, I smoked a lot of dope. And so I had this connection with hippie and white boys. They had the stuff.
You're in the right place for that.
And I would buy from him, and then when I go hang around my friends, we rolled joints up, and my stuff was better than the stuff that they could get. So they began to ask me, can you get me some? And I went against Panther teaching, and I became a dope dealer, selling drugs. And I sold more than reefer, marijuana, because I sold cocaine, I sold heroin. I stood on that corner and said, I got it. I got that boy, I got that girl. And I was dealing drugs, but it was against my teachings, and it always bothered me to the point where I had to stop that. I decided to open up a liquor house. Anybody know what a liquor house is? Well, you sell drinks illegally. And I turned my front room into a little club-like atmosphere. I painted my walls black and put some black lights in there, played loud music, and people would come and buy drinks. I just had one problem. Oh, the party was fine, but I had one problem. I couldn't stand a drunk person. And as soon as they got drunk, I'd kick them out my house. And so they quit coming to buy drinks from me. Eventually, I met this woman. My wife had left me. We were divorced, and I met this woman. And the time I met her, I was at the bottom of the barrel. And I was working in a furniture factory, minding my own business, till this fine sister came in there. She was being interviewed for a job. And I'm gonna tell you, this is how I was. I said, yo, fellas, go, everybody, hey, that's my wife. That's my wife. All I was doing was claiming, you call dibs, right? Don't nobody approach her, that's my wife. I didn't even know her. But when I approached her, I dapped up to her. She said, can I ask you something? I said, yeah. She said, why you walk like a gorilla? So I tried every line that worked before, but it won't work with her. She was a Christian. All she wanted to talk about was Jesus. All right? And in order for me to just get around her, I had to listen to that Jesus talk. And she asked me one day, she said, do you believe in healing? And I said, what you talking about? Where the man put his hand, slap you on the head, you fall down, and you get up and you heal? She said, yeah. She said, no, I don't believe in that mess. But my baby sister was living with my mother. And they called me up and they told me that there's something wrong with Gay. And I wanted to know what was wrong. You see, Gay was losing the feeling in her hands. And she was losing the feeling in her feet, to the point where she became a quadriplegic. She couldn't use her hands, her arms, or her feet. But I'm shacked up with another woman, not her. And Gay calls me. We're having a party that night, a card party, where you play cards and just drink. It's really just a get drunk party. And she called me up and they answered the phone, and I said, well, who is it? Well, it's your sister, okay? And I said, well, hey, Gay, how you doing? And she tells me, this is, I can't use my hands, I can't use my feet. Somebody has to change me. Somebody has to feed me. I can't do anything for myself. And I just felt so bad that I could not help my sister, that I made an excuse and hung up on her. And I went downstairs and I jumped down a liquor bottle. I got drunk. And I prayed, but not to God. I tried to make a deal with the devil. Sounds stupid, but I was drunk. I said, Satan, if you restore my sister's hands and legs back, I told the devil, I'll serve you. I'll be yours. And you know what? I was already his. Didn't nothing happen. I went to the job, and somebody asked me, what's wrong with you? Why are you looking so sad? I told them. And there was another sister that belonged to the same church she went to. And they said, well, why don't you go talk to her? Because people say she can pray and people get healed. Well, I didn't believe in that mess. I just didn't believe in it. But this is for my sister. And if I'm stupid enough to pray to Satan, I guess I can ask this woman to pray for my sister. And I went and told her everything about my sister and what the situation was. And will you pray for her? And I fully expected that woman was going to have to get in a car someplace. My sister was in New York in the hospital. But she just went home and she prayed. And that night, we were having another card party, playing spades and bid whist and all of that, and drinking. And the phone rang again. And I said, who is it? It said, it's your sister. And I said, oh boy, I don't want to talk to her. She gonna kill my high and bring me down. So I went, I said, hey, Gay, how you doing and everything? She said, guess what? I said, what? She said, guess what I'm gonna do tonight? So what you gonna do, Gay? Because I know you can't do nothing. What you gonna do? She said, I'm going out dancing. I'm saying, oh, Gay, come on, you ain't got to do that. I was thinking, well, she knew how bad she made me feel, so she was gonna call me up the next day, joking, and she said, I'm going out dancing. I said, oh, come on, you ain't got to. She said, no, I really am. Come on, Gay, don't tell me nothing like that. And she said, well, look, wait a minute. She put my cousin on the phone, and my cousin said, yeah, it's true. We're going out dancing tonight. I said, well, what happened? We don't know what happened. We just know that her hands came back and she could use them again. And her legs and feet came back and she could walk again. I said, but what happened? They said, well, we don't know what happened. But I knew what had happened. I asked that lady to pray for my sister. And that same God that heard me saying, oh, that was nothing but a bunch of mess, prove to me that he can still heal. Now, I know you didn't expect to hear this part coming from a Panther. But through the course of time, I called this lady up and I talked to her on the phone and she said, "Are you still doing drugs?" And I was. She said, "Promise me you'll stop doing drugs. I'm gonna pray for you." And I said, "Well, I ain't gonna give up everything. I'm not giving up my reefer. I'm not giving up the liquor. I ain't giving up them pills. I'll take a speed. I ain't giving that up. But pray that I get off this cocaine, get off this heroin." And so she did. That night, I went to a liquor house. It was actually a gambling house, but they sold liquor there too. And my best friend walked in the door. He was a dope dealer. And normally when I ran into him, he gave me drugs. He gave me heroin. He gave me cocaine. In fact, he's the one that got me hooked on it because I could always get it free. He walked in and he had a bag of coke. He pulled it out of his pocket. He threw it across the table. It landed in front of me. I looked at it. I looked at him. And he said, "Take it. It's yours." I picked it up. I plucked it a couple of times. Shake it all down to the bottom, see how much I really had. And then something spoke to me and said, "You don't really want that." And I threw it back across the table. And he looked at me and I said, "I ain't doing it no more." He didn't try to push it on me or anything. He just took it back. Something happened. I didn't go through withdrawal. I didn't have any shakes. My nose didn't drip. My bones didn't ache. I was delivered from a drug addiction just through a prayer. And I realized that. And so I went out in the backyard of where I was staying. I stood up under an oak tree. I said, "God, if you can take heroin and cocaine from me, you can take everything else away from me." I said, "Take it away." And I meant that. And I had a neighbor, white boy, staying right beside me. He ain't never spoke to me before. He was hanging over the fence. While I was praying, I heard somebody say, "Psst, psst." And I looked, he had the fattest joint. He was saying, "Come on, man, take it. Hawaiian red." And I looked at him and I realized that I had been delivered just by asking God to deliver me. I didn't get saved right then, but it was on my mind. I called her up again one day. I said, "Y'all having church in the morning?" It was one Saturday night. "Y'all having church?" She said, "Yes, we having church." She told me what the schedule was and everything. I meant to get up early in the morning. I was gonna go to Sunday school. I was gonna catch first service. I was gonna catch the second service. I was gonna spend all day in church. And I woke up late. So I hurried up. I didn't take a shower. I just jumped in my clothes, jumped in my car, speeded across town. And when I got to the church, I had lit this cigarette. And all the things I asked God to take from me, but I didn't ask him to take those cigarettes away from me. So there I was smoking a cool, all right? And I couldn't put it down. But I'm dragging on it. I'm puffing on it. And fire was that long on the end of that cigarette. And I couldn't put it down. It was fire on one end and fool on the other. And when I finally finished, I threw that cigarette down. I got out my car and I'm rushing to get into church because I see people still going. I can make it. I can be on time. So I'm rushing to get in. And I realized I smell like cigarette smoke. It's all on me. And while I walked up to the church, I said, God, if you take this away from me, I'll do something for you. That was my prayer. It sounds very simple. What I was trying to do was cut a deal with the Lord. Okay? I went into church. We went through Sunday school, and then Sunday school went into the first service, and after the first service, we took a break, and they fed us a meal and everything, and we went right back. The people stayed in church all day. We went into a second service, and now I'm coming out of the church. It's over. I'm standing out, and I'm fellowshipping with the brothers and sisters out in the yard, and then I realize I haven't smoked a cigarette all day. I don't have I'm not having a nicotine fit. I'm not having any type of withdrawals from cigarettes. God had taken that away from me also. And I went home, and I went to bed, and the next morning, when I jumped up out of habit, the first thing I did was grab my cigarettes, because I'm shaking out one as soon as I wake up. On my way to the bathroom, I usually have one lit up, but by the time I come out of the bathroom, I got another one lighting up. And I shook that cigarette out, and the Spirit of God spoke to me and said, you don't do this anymore. And I crumbled up that pack of cigarettes, and I threw them in the trash can. In fact, I had a whole carton. I threw them all in the trash can. I haven't smoked since 1984. The Lord took it from me. And I made that deal with God. And I tell God, if you take this away from me, I'll do something for you. So guess what? This is what I do. I tell people how I met Jesus and what he did in my life. And I did get saved. And one of the first things I told people before, one of the first things that I read in my Bible, when Jesus said, inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it also unto me. And the disciples said, you know what? He said, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the sick and those who are bound. And I read that, and these are the requirements, these are things that Christians are supposed to do. And you know what I found out? That's what the Black Panther Party taught me, even before I ever picked up the Bible and read it for myself. We were feeding the hungry. We were clothing those who needed clothes. We were putting shoes on people's feet. We were visiting those in hospitals. We were taking care of the widows and the orphans. And the Black Panther Party taught me that. And so I tell people today, yes, I'm a pastor. I'm a liberation theologian. I am a community activist. This is my first calling. This is my true calling. To organize people, to help people, to serve people. You are so young. There's so much that you could do. You could change the world. You don't have to go along with things that you were seeing that you know are wrong. You know it's wrong. You can organize. Why don't you organize? Why don't you stir up something? I told a group of young girls today, Black Student Association, we put our hope in you. You're our future. You're our hope. All that I have not been able to accomplish, I need you to put your hand to the grinding wheel. I need you to raise up that banner. I need you to be a revolutionary. Because revolution doesn't have to always be fought with a gun. We proved that. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
You are the people. Thank you.